All right, what is up, Rangers and hockey fans? Thank you all so much for chiming in for the latest episode of Rangers Review. This is episode 38 here on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Myself and Statboy Steven. We're going to be breaking down the past couple games for the Rangers. This is our week 4. The Rangers have played 4 games since the last time that we spoke, and I do believe that neither of us hit on our actual predictions. We got very close to actually being correct here, especially with how the Rangers would perform in Canada. But no less, we're going to be getting into all these games, breaking them down one by one. Really, our evaluation on what was not a good stretch of 4 games for the Rangers. And even though that while they are 7-3-3 right now, second in the Metropolitan, there's been a lot more complaints, it looks like, not just across the media, but with normal fans than positive. So we're going to be getting into that all, sharing our thoughts here and breaking down certain things when it comes to Igor Shesterkin, how he's played, Chris Kreider staying hot, Alexi Lafreniere and Kakko continuing to be underwhelming and going over their utilization with the club at this point, and so much more. So if you guys are chiming in the live stream, thank you for being here. We'll be taking comments and questions towards the end of the show per usual, and make sure to smash that like and subscribe button if you're here on YouTube. But Steven, how are you doing today, my friend?
Doing well. It's a little late here because we're back to the 5-hour difference between you and me after you guys switched.
Oh, that's true.
Standard time on the weekend. So, no, doing well. Looking forward to flying to New York next week Thursday. So, fingers crossed. I'm having my COVID test on Tuesday at the airport, and when that one comes back negative, I'm cleared to fly. So yeah. The final day's wrapping up before I get on that plane again for the first time. That'll be my first flight to North America since January 2020.
That's crazy.
Been a while, yeah. But no, been doing well. Do want to give a quick shout out to Ivan, who one of the guys I met here in Dublin. He's a Rangers fan.
Shout out Ivan.
We hung out a few times, and it's fun having a beer with someone and talk hockey face to face without a webcam in between. So,
yeah, I know. We still have to meet in person. Hopefully that can come to fruition with you hitting the States very soon. We'll see what happens. But I got to ask, because of the fact that you're going to be here, in the U.S. for, like you said, 2.5 weeks, we're going to have to get creative on our recording schedule. Maybe we'll have to be able to catch you at some point where you're not busy. But if we do have to halt things with episodes a little bit, it's not the end of the world. I understand you want to make the most of your time while you're here. But make sure to let all the Rangers fans know exactly what games you'll be attending, or game at least as of now, so that way they can try to catch you, maybe grab a beer with you or whatever fun stuff it may be.
Yeah, so I'm going to the Sabres game next week, Sunday, which is Hockey Fights Cancer Night. I haven't decided yet on what jersey to wear. I might be wearing that one for warm-ups, the Rick Nash Hockey Fights Cancer jersey. I'm pretty sure people will recognize me because I'll probably have like a really obscure jersey on at Madison Square Garden.
You'll stick out like a sore thumb a little bit.
Yeah. Then the night before, I'm going up to Hartford to go to their Hockey Fights Cancer game where they play. Who are they playing? The Hershey Bears, I think.
Oh, okay. I've been to some Hershey Bears games. They're not far from where I reside.
I like the Hershey Bears. The Hershey Bears are one of the few AHL teams that have their own identity and are successful.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Most teams are either successful, but they are just a copycat of their NHL team. Like the Syracuse Crunch. I mean, if you squint, they look like the Tampa Bay Lightning.
But the Bears are their own thing, and they have a good following too. There's a lot of people that get ramped up for. I've been to a Hershey Bears game against the Hartford Wolfpack in playoffs. This is when Bork was still on the Rangers affiliate for Hartford, one of Ray's sons.
That must be like 6-7 years ago. Ryan Bork.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I have the puck somewhere. Did Hartford win that game? I think that they did, and that's actually how I got one of my best friends introduced into hockey and the Rangers was that game. And, it's been ever since. He's been heavily ingrained with them, which is great to see. But, yeah, Hershey Bears, definitely fun to go to games there.
And I'm going to the Red Hot Hockey game. It's Cornell against Boston University on the 27th.
That's going to be a good one.
And I
might be in attendance. Who knows?
Yeah. I do want to go to an Islanders game because I want to see their new arena. So right now it looks like we're going to the Islanders Sharks game because tickets are relatively cheap, and this trip's going to be expensive enough as it is. So yeah, those are the games we're looking at for my trip. And yeah, but I'll be in New York for 2.5 weeks, so I'll probably spend some days walking through the city. Just it's been like 2 years since I've been there, so I do want to.
Are you going to be staying in this city or on the outskirts?
No, I'm staying in Queens, so it's
okay,
close.
Perfect. You should tour City Field while you're there. Get a nice view of the Met Stadium.
I've been to Met Stadium. I've been to the Met Stadium.
You need to go back there without like passing out.
Without hypothermia. Yeah, that would be nice. I do want to go to a Mets game one day, like in like May or June.
Say no more, Steven. We'll make that happen.
Die from the cold, but yeah, no, I'll be in New York for 2.5 weeks. Really looking forward to it. It's been a while. It's gonna be my first Thanksgiving, and my fiance's dad assured me that it's going to be like a big ass turkey on the table. And when I asked him, "Is there anything you need me to do? You need me to bring on Thanksgiving?" He goes, "The only thing you need to do is shut up, eat, and drink." Like, I think I can do that. So yeah, but looking forward to it. Finally.
Sounds like it's going to be a great time. I'm happy for you. But, I think that's a great pivot into something that isn't going to be as positive, and that was the Rangers' last 4 games of play. I believe your prediction, correct me if I'm wrong, I think you said the Rangers would go 1-2-1. I said the Rangers would go 2-1-1. Okay,
so 1-2.
Rangers ended up going 1-1-2. So you were correct in the Rangers not winning a game in Canada. You hit the nail on the head with that one. Unfortunately, I should say, because man, oh man, the Rangers should have easily won 2 of those 3 games, when you look at how they went. But let's start off with the first game, which was against the Canucks.
Sorry, before we do the whole breakdown.
Okay.
How do you take a 2-goal lead into the third period twice in 3 games and not come away with a win?
Steven, we have a lot to rant about, okay? Let's just get into this one already. Okay, so I will say, let's keep this in mind, that the Rangers did lose because of JT Miller being on the ice across from them, because JT Miller has yet to lose a game against the New York Rangers since being traded away from them.
Really?
So, yes, fun fact for you. So if you want to know the absolute reason why the Rangers lost that game against the Canucks, no, it wasn't because of the performance after being up 2-0. No, it was because of JT Miller. And look, JT had to say he was the reason why Canucks physically won in the end, besides his presence. But
yeah, there are a couple of players who seemingly never lose against the Rangers. Drew Stafford is one.
Drew, I remember that, man. Yeah.
And Jimmy Howard is another infamous opponent for the Rangers.
Oh yeah, and I commend Jimmy Howard because he was a guy, I know we've talked about it recently. Grew up a diehard Rangers fan, loved playing in MSG. So like naturally you have that kind of, fire under you when you're playing against a team that you grew up loving. And that was kind of similar to Spencer Knight, even though he didn't necessarily perform the way that you would expect for the Florida Panthers, because you'll be getting to that shortly. Idolized Henrik Lundqvist growing up, in which Hank said that, he loves the Kid Array, which I found funny. But let's go to the Canucks game here. Rangers lost this one. Absolutely, they should have won. They lost 3-2. They were outshot by the Canucks 36-25. The only reason why the Rangers stayed in this one was, surprise, Igor Shesterkin doing what he does best, having a really strong game for the Rangers, no less. Rangers went 2 for 5 on the power play. They lost 48% to 52 in faceoffs. So naturally, when you think the Rangers aren't doing well on the faceoff dot, they might actually get a win, because they're a team that just historically still to this point has not been consistent with faceoffs. They had 18 blocks to the Canucks 12. Both were even at 24 hits apiece. And Rangers only had 2 giveaways in this game. They got off to the early lead. A nice goal from Mika Zibanejad that was assisted by Panarin and Fox. That was Zibanejad's second goal of the year. Same thing with Artemi Panarin getting his second goal of the year, thanks to Adam Fox, Array 2 points on the night, and Ryan Strome getting his second assist. And then we get into the third period, and JT Miller, the former New York Ranger, who has had a slow start to the season, goal-scoring wise, entering this game at least, got his second of the year, and that made it a 2-1 game right in the beginning of the period, might I add, too. So that's never a good look. And then not long after, rookie Vasily Podkolzin, the Russian, got the goal. That was his second of the year. And then the Rangers end up going to overtime. And yes, JT Miller gets the winner on what was such a frustrating goal, because Igor, it was a wraparound situation and Igor got caught for a second. The puck just trickled right out of like Igor's, I don't know if it was his pad or whatever. It just trickled out for JT right behind the net. Quickly did a wraparound goal to make that the OT winner. Rangers lost this one. Frustrating game for sure, especially as I said after last episode, you knew damn well the Rangers were going to go to overtime on the West Coast. Late night games for people, Eastern time, let alone for you. My goodness gracious, think about how late those games were. So it wasn't fun. Rangers lose that one in overtime, and they start off their road trip to this point with one loss in the column, that being from overtime. So they got a point, but definitely a game looking back they absolutely should have won.
Yeah, and after that game, they go up to Edmonton. One of the
My goodness,
one of the toughest opponents in terms of offense, because they may seem like a one-line team, but it's the team's more complete than fans credit for. But back in the lineup after he was a healthy stretch against Vancouver in favor of Tenorti. Lundqvist getting an assist on the first goal by Philip Hedl, which was his second point in his last two games. Hyman tied it up, and then the Rangers have a really good second period where they get goals from Rooney, Kreider, and Mika Zibanejad, getting up to 4-1 against the Edmonton Oilers. With about 6 minutes to go in the second period, they're up 3 goals. Unfortunately, Jesse Puljujärvi scores for the Oilers, making it 4-2. And then in the third period, Barrie and again Puljujärvi tied up. Zibanejad then makes it 5-4 for the Rangers. And at that point, I really thought we had it in the bag. I remember a game against the Maple Leafs a couple of years ago where the Rangers were down, I think 5-1. They came back to 5-5, and they still lost 8-5. And I thought
I remember that game. Wow, that brought a memory. My goodness.
I thought the same thing was going to happen here. The Rangers have a 3-goal lead. They allow the Oilers to get all the way back in the game, but it's going to drain their energy at the same rate. And then the Rangers will just capitalize on a couple of chances and take home the win. Unfortunately, that didn't happen because, of course, the goal of the season had to be scored against the Rangers this year by Connor McDavid, who...
At least we can be thankful that's from the best player on the planet. Okay, if this was a guy that was a scrub, a bottom feeder, that it wouldn't be fun. But Connor doing Connor things should be the least bit surprising. But my goodness, that was not a pretty sight at all.
If Connor McDavid plays this way for the next 5 years, he's going to win 5 Hart trophies in a row. There's no denying that. He's not just the best player in the league. He's the best player in the league by a mile. This is, and I'm not saying he's as good as Gretzky. I'm just saying, compared to his peers, it's the same kind of dominance.
Agreed.
No one comes even close. But yeah, he ties it up with a great goal. And yeah, you can say that it's poor defense by the Rangers, or you can say that it's just a great play by the best player in the world. I think it's a little bit of both. But yeah, taking the game to overtime. And then in overtime, unfortunately, Zibanejad falls over, I think, trying to block the pass from Nurse to Draisaitl, or from McDavid to Draisaitl, from Nurse to Draisaitl. And Draisaitl finishes it in overtime for the overtime win for the Oilers. And, it's unfortunate that you only come away with 1 point at that stage. But let's talk about the Oilers for a second. Everyone's talking about McDavid, right? McDavid is not even, I think maybe now, but for up until yesterday, McDavid wasn't even leading his team in points. It's Draisaitl. And McDavid, let me check. They're tied at 23 points.
It's the 1-2 punch. It usually is.
Then they have Nugent Hopkins with 14 assists.
Who's very underrated.
Puljujärvi, 6 goals, 7 assists, who actually I want to get into later on. Let me quickly add these to my list of points.
Yeah, I've always been a Puljujärvi fan, not just from his kind of, bubbly personality. He just has the form of a makeup of a guy that looks like, especially coming out of his draft year, that he could be dominant, especially when you think of the other big-bodied Finns that have good shots. Think of Patrick Laine, if you will. But Puljujärvi, even though he's had his ups and downs early in his career, you can clearly tell he's rejuvenized himself. And he's still at a young age where there's plenty potential for him to hit a peak that we simply haven't seen yet.
Yeah, and the fifth player who has hit double digits this early in the season is Zach Hyman.
Yeah.
who was considered one of the worst contracts, one of the worst free agent signings this last summer. Not that he's a bad player, but just the term and the AAV were way too high for a guy
Hey,
like Hyman.
I
But
don't
then,
think there's any Oilers fan complaining about Hyman right
look,
now.
can you really complain? It's David Perron all over again. Can you really complain when you put him on the line with McDavid and he puts up a point per game?
Exactly.
It's like Genso in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Is Genso a superstar player? No, but he's playing with Crosby and he's putting up a point per game. Same with who's the other guy? Chris Kunitz. Chris Kunitz is like the poster boy for support players.
Chris Kunitz was the embodiment of being a role player.
Yeah. So, but yeah, the Rangers lose in overtime in Edmonton. Unfortunately, they concede a lot of goals. But
This was back-to-back games where the Rangers
back-to-back games with 6 goals, and you'll get into it with the Flames game.
My goodness,
But
it just
if you give me a quick second before you get into that, the Rangers before the last game against the Panthers, they were 7-2-1-0 in their last 10 times, coming off consecutive games, conceding at least 6 goals each, dating back to 1998. So, conceding 6 goals twice, like in back-to-back games, has only happened 11 times now since 1998. So it's a pretty rare occurrence.
it's really an anomaly to what we're normally accustomed to. And to further touch on the game before we get into the Flames one, which is by far the worst game of this 4-game span, as we all know. Oilers dominated the Rangers, though, when it came to shots. Another game where the Rangers are just getting absolutely whipped with shot production. That's something that I want to emphasize a lot later in this episode. 39-25. Georgiev, while he definitely, there were some goals that I felt like he could have had for sure. He kept the Rangers in it to a certain extent. I'm not going to put all of the blame on Georgiev at all. He made some big saves for the Rangers when they needed it. But 42% to 59% Oilers winning faceoff. Shouldn't be surprised. Oilers were 2 for 2 on the power play. That's something that the Rangers definitely need to continue to shore up with their penalty kill, because it hasn't been anything spectacular this season. They were 1 for 2. So overall, in the first 2 games on this trip, the Rangers had 3 power play goals. Still have yet to record a win, however.
The Oilers game was a great game for the depth players for the Rangers.
Yes, it was. Especially a guy before he got hurt, that being a Philip Hedl.
Philip Hedl going an assist. Sammy Blais, Hedl, and Nils Lundqvist were +2 in a game where you concede 6 goals. That's that's a good sign. So if the depth players are having a good performance, then it's easier to recover, because all you need now is your top players to really get into it. And we'll get to that in a second, in not the Flames game, but in the Panthers game. But Flames first.
Yeah, there really isn't much to say on this Flames game. The Rangers clearly looked like a team that played the night before and just had no pep in their step. They had opportunities for sure, and they ran into a very hot goaltender so far this season for the Calgary Flames, who has already done well against the Rangers in one other game, because the Rangers are now already 0-2 against Calgary this year. I think the Flames swept. I'm assuming the Flames only play the Rangers twice this season. So if so, then that's it already.
Yes.
Markstrom looked great. Got himself a shutout. Easy shutout, though, but there were some huge stops where the Rangers looked like that they had great opportunities. This was just a shit show of a game, both looking like a complete lack of offensive production, just getting dominated in every which way. Again, if you look at the power plays, Rangers went 0 for 3 in this one. Flames won 1 for 3. Another game where the Rangers are giving up power play goals. Rangers won the faceoff dot, so that's how you knew that the Rangers weren't going to win this one for sure. Flames basically almost doubled shots to what the Rangers had, 37-22. The third consecutive game for the Rangers where they're costing at least 35 plus shots a game and aren't really getting much of their own. It's really looking polar opposite. They dominate in hits 27-13, but that goes in hand with not having the puck. In that instance, especially, they had 15 giveaways in this one. Flames had 21, but that goes in hand with their continued offensive production. So it really isn't even too much of terrible giveaways on their end. Just dominated 6 goals between Sean Monahan, the first period, second period, Brad Richardson, Johnny Gaudreau. And I will say there were some goals that Igor definitely looked like he should have had. They were not looking great on him, but the Rangers defense was just abysmal for the majority of this game. Johnny Gaudreau had 2 goals in this one. Milan Lucic with a goal that was just such a bizarre one that just trickled, it looked like off the glove of Igor and went in, or his blocker. Then Matthew Tkachuk with like in between the legs goal right in front of the net. It just terrible game for the Rangers all around. This is easily one of their worst of the season. Both times they played the Flames now have not had good night. And you could say that the 2 times the Rangers have played the Flames this year, they've had their 2 worst games of the season thus far. So if there's any positive takeaway from this, it's that the Rangers don't have to deal with Calgary again anytime soon. I commend the Flames. They've had a really good start to the season this year, and they handed it to the Rangers in every way. They took full advantage of the Rangers playing the back-to-back. Rangers looked lifeless, and definitely was discouraging for a club that I know that they grinded their past 2 games going to overtime. I can understand how exhausting that is enough, along with being on the trip. But still, with all those factors putting into play, I was hoping to see a better performance than what I saw against Calgary.
Yeah, and the Rangers of recent have struggled a lot against the Calgary Flames. I was at the Rangers game in Calgary 2.5 years ago, where they lost 5-1. I think they have lost 5 in a row now.
Against Calgary.
Against Calgary, yeah. And it's not the longest losing streak they've had against that organization. The longest losing streak is 7 games. Back in the late 70s when they were still in Atlanta. So, but yeah, 5 games in a row losing against the Flames. It's not pretty. I mean, 6-0, 5-1, another 5-1, and a 4-1. The only game that was close was early last year, 2020. It was 4-3 for the Flames. That's the only game where the Rangers came close to get to winning. 4-1, 5-1, 5-1, 6-0. Those are the other 4 results in the last 5. Unfortunate. The Flames seem to be our weak spot in recent years.
They're the Rangers' kryptonite right now.
Hopefully that'll change. But yeah, after the Flames, the Rangers come back home, and they're playing against the Florida Panthers. The team that at the time did not have a regulation loss yet. I don't like to use the word undefeated, because if you lose in overtime, you are still losing. You're still defeated. But they were 10-0-1 coming into the game against the Rangers, and expectations were low. A lot of Ranger fans didn't expect us to win, because you go up against the best team in the league. You're coming off the worst possible road trip you could have had, aside from the Seattle Kraken game, but. The 3 games in Canada probably couldn't have gone worse. And then you take on the Florida Panthers, and the Rangers off to a flying start. Chris Kreider on the power play, and then Adam Fox shorthanded. That goal by Adam Fox. I don't know if there are any football fans here, like soccer fans listening, but I was talking on Twitter to a friend of mine. He reminds me of Dennis Bergkamp, a Dutch player who played for Arsenal for many years. Adam Fox does not score ugly goals. Every goal he scores is a beauty. It's unbelievable. And this goal was another one. Short-handed, assisted by Gaudreau and Zibanejad. And then in the second period, the Rangers go 4-4 after Lafreniere is hooked. Lafreniere gets called for embellishment. I'm trying to think who the player was that went off together with Lafreniere. Aaron Ekblad. Went off for holding Lafreniere for unsportsmanlike conduct. So 4-4. And then Keandre Miller scores the Rangers goal of the year so far. And eerily similar to the one Neil Pionk scored a few years ago against the Montreal Canadiens.
I know. I'm not going to lie. It pissed me off a little bit that he read my mind, because I was about to tweet it. I was like, of course, Steven. He tweeted right away. It really felt like the exact same thing. Pionk's was more flashier because he literally started, I think, right behind the net. And then didn't he do like a little spin?
Yeah, Pionk had the spinorama as well, but Miller does it against the best team in the league. That makes it a little bit more special. But yeah, shades of Neil Pionk there on that goal at 4-4. And then Ryan Strome, not even 30 seconds later, scores again 4-4, assisted by Panarin. Panarin should have had a goal, but it was called off because of goaltender interference by Ryan Strome.
I was far more bothered that was Kakko's first point of the season.
Yes, I was just going to say,
especially with him holding the puck the way he did behind the net.
Kakko made a great play there, and he deserved to be rewarded there with an assist. Unfortunately, no points for Kakko, but his game's getting better. He's getting there. I know fans don't want to hear it because 0 points, but he played a really good game against the Florida Panthers, and he should have been rewarded for it with an assist. And in the third period, he could have scored a goal. But Spencer Knight, who led in 4 goals, had actually a decent night. He made some really good saves. So the Rangers take a 4-0 lead into the third period. And you know what happens when the Rangers take a multi-goal lead into the third period? Lutza Salinen scores 20 seconds in, and I was like, oh boy, here we go. But then the Rangers hold on, and with 2 minutes to go, they pull their goalie, and you're like, it's 4-1. Oh, it's what's possibly going to happen, right? It's 4-1. Sam Reinhart scores, Maxime Amin scores, and then with 40 seconds to go, all of a sudden it's 4-3. And Ranger fans started to panic, like, oh my God, we're not going to sit through this again, right? But luckily, Shesterkin pulled through. Shesterkin faced 45 shots. 45 shots, 42 saves for a .933 save percentage. And you can tell he was visibly annoyed. He was angry about those last 2 goals.
Let's take a moment to talk about the Gallant's reasoning as to why Igor didn't walk out for one of the stars of the game. He said it was apparently a stomach flu reason. I'm not sure why you go an entire hockey game and then decide, the stomach flu is now bothering me. That's why I decided not to step on the ice. It seemed like it was pretty obvious that Igor was rightfully so flustered with his team after that performance in the third. Like that. Yeah. Igor's single-handedly winning this team games, and even while Calgary wasn't pretty and it wasn't his best game by any stretch, if you look at his numbers here, and this is something that I really want us to touch on quite a bit, because we're getting into Henrik Lundqvist range already with Igor, and this is something the Rangers need to make sure that they avoid going further, because as we know, during Hank's time, during his prime, especially with the Rangers, he was the rock. So many times the Rangers had no chance of actually having a win, but if it wasn't for Hank, that actually single-handedly got them wins, or got them close to wins at least. And if you look at Igor's numbers over his past 3 games here that we've seen, he faced 118 shots. So for him to, even with that 6 goals he gave up, I don't even care. It doesn't even matter. Igor's giving up 6 goals was not the lone reason why the Rangers lost that game in Calgary. They had nothing offensively to even try to get some sort of life. So
and the only goal they scored in Calgary was called off by Adam Fox.
Exactly. And how beautiful would have that been if that actually stayed true, going back to Calgary. I know that Flames fans were not happy to see him there. I can genuinely care less because I'm happy he's a Ranger. But
the Florida Panthers getting 45 shots on goal, the Rangers only getting 18, and they're winning. And look, I'm just going to say this. Yes, I'm really happy when the Rangers win. The game starts at midnight. I only go to bed at 2:30. When the Rangers win, I'm happy. But at the same time, I can also acknowledge that the Rangers aren't playing sustainable winning hockey.
And Gerard Gallant's fully aware of that too. And I appreciate that from him, that he's not trying to, beat around the bush and cover something like it's not. He wasn't happy in his post-game presser. Mm-hmm. I like that. But it's up to him at the end of the day to help try to resolve this issue right now, which is a complete lack of accountability, sitting back once you have a lead entering the third period. He made it known. He's like, we need to change. That can't happen. I remember watching his pressers, watching again earlier today. He said that going into the season, the Rangers looked pretty solid in the third period. We were really comfortable with how we were doing. Past 4 games during this stretch, the Rangers gave up 11 goals. You can't be doing that to have success. So they need to shore this up. Thankfully, they at least secured a win on this trip, but definitely trip looking back, they should have won 3 of these 4 games. And it's frustrating. I know that this is a team that has a solid record right now. They're not playing as well as they should. So that gives you excitement knowing that once they can get everything balanced, hopefully, how much better is this club going to be this year? They're going to hit their strides for sure. But definitely some cause for concern right now between the lack of consistency we're seeing period by period. For a Rangers team that Gallant has emphasized too on gained shots on net. He wants to see more of that. He's right, because the Rangers right now are the worst team in all the NHL on gained shots on net per 60, 5-on-5. And that goes in hand with one. A lot of penalties are happening in games usually. They're either getting power plays or having penalties themselves that they have to kill. So that's a factor. But 2, you can tell that the Rangers there's something about them right now where they're steamrolling for one period, but we don't get enough of it. We're not getting it when they need. They're aware of what they're doing. They need to make sure that they have the mindset of continuing to tack on versus sitting back for a little bit. Because as soon as you sit back, that's when you get caught off guard from a team that's hungry, trying to execute and get back in the game. And as we saw with Edmonton, Florida, and even the Canucks, all it takes is a couple goals to get a momentum swing, and before you know it, you find yourself in the losing column.
Yeah, and look, as fans, we need to realize that winning and playing well are not necessarily the same thing. And if you want to consistently have a good chance of winning your games, like in the long run, the Rangers need to play better. Artemi Panarin is a point per game player this season, and he's not playing like it though. And yes,
no, he's not.
I'm thrilled that he's a point per game player because he still has his value to the team, but something's off. He gets a stretch pass from Adam Fox, and the puck just bounces off his stick like it's a grenade. It's unbelievable. Something's wrong, but he's still putting up points. I'm happy that he's putting up points, but he needs to be better. I think he will be better. Same with Zibanejad. Our top players will improve, but that doesn't mean I'm not going to call it out. If the Rangers are playing a bad game and still come away with a win, I'm going to be happy that we won, but also concerned that it's not sustainable, and that's the point. If they play the game against the Panthers 10 times, they might win it only twice. Because that's just the way the Rangers are playing. The number of shot attempts, I don't remember the exact number of shot attempts, but I think the Florida Panthers got more than 100 shot attempts.
Yeah, it was a lot. They were just swarming.
It was crazy. And, the defense blocked a bunch. There were a lot of shots that missed the net. But when it hit the net, Shesterkin was there. Shesterkin has gotten us points in the early start to the season. And yes, we are in a playoff spot, but we're not playing like it. And that's what concerns me. And we've seen this all before. Under Alain Vigneault, we had a similar start, and the team imploded because they just couldn't back it up.
It feels like a broken record. I feel like if you're a Rangers fan that's been watching long enough, then you are fully aware on how everything's transpiring right now. And that's my biggest concern with how heavily reliant this team has been on their goaltending early. This is something that is not going to amount to success to the point where you're going to have a deep playoff run. And by no means do I have these high expectations of Rangers, going on a Stanley Cup run this year. The point is, in order to really help point out the clear flaws you have with your team, we've said this time and time in the past, having a goaltender to rely on, while it's great to have that, it also lessens the blow of the reality of your issues when it comes to, okay, you don't have consistency with your offense. Maybe you aren't rolling your four lines properly. You're not getting enough offensive production, right? You're not getting enough pucks on net. Defensively, you're having your miscues, but you're still getting away with it because when you look, you're getting more wins in the column because your goaltender is just otherworldly at times. That's been Igor.
And it masks the flaws on this team. The Rangers are 31st in the league with 25.7 shots a game, and tied for last with a minus 79 shot differential.
The game outplayed.
And, I know people can say it's early and this and that. I get it. It's early, but
it's true. It is early. I don't think the Rangers are going to be playing like this all year long.
It is early, but we're almost at 15% of the season already. We have played 13 games. Look, the last time they averaged under 28.5 shots a game in a season was 1998-99, the final year of Wayne Gretzky, which was a year where we missed the playoffs. And I know it's not an exact science. I know it's not baseball where you can focus a lot more on individual statistics, because baseball is a team sport, but it's also an individual sport, if you understand where I'm going with this.
Mm-hmm.
Hockey is much more fluid, much more intertwined. Performances by players are much more intertwined with each other. So it's harder to pinpoint the exact issue. But when you look at the team numbers, the Rangers just aren't playing good hockey. And it's just not sustainable. And that's what it comes down to every time. Yes, I'm happy that we're winning. I'm just not sure that we will keep winning if we keep playing this way. The Rangers need to change. They need to improve. And I'm gonna bring up the elephant in the room. Having Sammy Blais in your top six is not going to make you a better team than last season. I'm sorry.
I agree with that, and I want to touch on Blay here in a
Yeah.
second.
So
But
hold on. So all offseason we've heard that you shouldn't look at the Buchnevich trade as Buchnevich for Sammy Blay because we also got a second round pick. I don't care about second round picks. Second round picks are magic beans. The Rangers miss second round picks more than they hit on them. I know, but Blay brings something for the bottom six, and that's fine. I like Blay. Yeah, you could have acquired him for a second round pick. You didn't have to give up your winger that was on pace for 70 points over a full season. And I know there's a cap space issue starting next year, but they could have done with him what they did with Kevin Hayes. Give him a 1-year extension, trade him at the deadline.
I think the point that you're just trying to make is that the Rangers didn't just throw away Buchnevich because there's no reason to really rekindle this anymore. We're upset about it enough, but past is a past. Wishing Buch the best during his time with St. Louis. But the point you're making is that Blaze really Buchnevich's replacement right now in this top six, and that should not be the case to begin with. That makes it even more of a bad look on the deal because you can make further arguments in comparing the two.
Yeah, I'm on board with trading away Buchnevich. I'm on board with acquiring Sammy Blais. I'm just not on board with acquiring Sammy Blais by trading away Buchnevich. I like Thomas Hertl. I would like to trade for him. I wouldn't give up Adam Fox.
Yeah.
It's I know it's a bit of a weird comparison, but that's the point. You can like Sammy Blais as a player while simultaneously still disliking the trade. And the Rangers cleared cap space, but for what? We have $8 million in cap space. We're not using it. What are we going to do? Are we going to trade for Phil Kessel?
Yeah,
I don't know what Chris Drury's game plan is here, because obviously the goal is to make the playoffs. That's why Jeff Gordon and John Davidson are out the door.
The Rangers are looking like a team that could use a Buchnevich type in their lineup right now, especially without Kravtsov.
Dolan wants us to make the playoffs, but we're not going to make the playoffs if we keep playing this way. Also, because I'm going to quickly look this up to see if it's still relevant, but we are playing in the toughest division in the league by far. If you look at the records for each division.
And we're getting away with a lot right now, but that's not going to last.
The lowest ranked team in the Metropolitan Division, the Pittsburgh Penguins, are at .545 point percentage. They're over 500. In every other division, they would be top 5. In some divisions, they would be 4th. We are playing in by far the toughest division already. The Rangers are currently ranked in win percentage 5th behind the Hurricanes, the Flyers, the Blue Jackets, and the Capitals, with a point percentage of .654. So and the Rangers have played 3 more games than some of these teams, and that's why I care more about point percentage than about points, because point percentage is much more indicative, because at the end of the season, you've all played the same amount of games. Right now, the Rangers, if we go to the conference point percentage, right now the Rangers would squeak in with a wild card.
Yeah.
And that's with us not playing well. So we've been lucky. The Rangers have been lucky to win some games. Something needs to change. And Adam Fox is playing like a Norris Trophy winner again. Igor Shesterkin is playing like a Vezina candidate. But aside from those two, what do we have? Yeah, we have Chris Kreider, who scores 6 power play goals in a month, which is great.
And let's pivot for a second to the guys that are performing right now and who aren't, and why they aren't. Because when we look at over these past 4 games, especially, the guys that are supposed to be performing on paper are performing. Kreider had 4 points these past 4 games, 2 goals, 2 assists. Love to see that. He's continuing to stay hot. 9 goals on the year already. Shout out to Kreids, doing what we all would hope that he would be doing. Artemi Panarin, not much in the goal scoring, but he still had 5 points in 4 games. So over a point per game guy over this past stretch of games. Zibanejad, same thing, 5 points as well, 3 goals, 2 assists. Had himself a pretty good game in there as well. And Adam Fox, 4 points casually, including a goal and 3 assists. But when you're getting onto the Sammy Blais, for instance, Sammy Blais, as we know, that's most recently been playing on line number 1 for the Rangers. If you take a look at his performance, he only has 1 point in his last 5 games. And this is with him playing in part in a top 6 role for sure. And gain a good amount of playing time, gain some shots on net, but really nothing to indicate that Sammy Blais is the right fit. It really feels like Sammy Blais is a filler right now for the sake of if this was a Jesper Fast when he was with Strome and even with Panarin. And same thing could be said to a certain extent with Colin Blackwell at times. It just, for the Rangers, when their obvious issue to this point has been player development, and I understand that Lafreniere has been underwhelming, and it's not all on just the Rangers' utilization. It goes on him too. But if you look in comparison with Lafreniere over his past 5 games, he has 0 points, and this is him with obviously playing in the bottom 6 too. He only has 1 shot on net during that span. He had 12 shifts a couple games ago, 14, I believe, his most recent game. He's not getting much opportunities right now. So I think the question lies for a guy like Sammy Blais, who only has 1 point in his past 5 games. Why is he that much more justified being that top spot versus something like Lafreniere potentially, when all that is going to happen is that you potentially give Lafreniere ability to continue to grow and develop, get more playing time, because clearly that position isn't doing much for the Rangers right now in their top 6. You can't tell me that Lafreniere being on the top line right now over a guy like Sammy Blais is going to be completely indicative of you winning or losing a game. That has not proven to be that case just yet. So I think when you look at Laffy's utilization right now, yes, he's underwhelming. Yes, he's on pace to, if you look at other guys, I know you've been referencing the Red Wings so much. I wouldn't do that too much, but I think the point here is that if Lafreniere was on a team right now that, 1, had a little expectations, but 2, was just getting constant time and constant ability on your top power play, on your top line, game in and game out, with not the type of pressure the Rangers now have as a team that's prioritizing playoffs, he would be thriving. And I think you can make that same argument to a certain extent with Kakko. I'm not really as much concerned with Kakko because, yes, I know he doesn't have any points yet through 9 games, but that isn't telling of his actual performance. Kakko looked a little bit slow coming back from his injury, but otherwise has been doing fine. He looked really good in the Florida Panthers game. So I'm really not as much concerned with him as I am Lafreniere. This is a guy that you have to make sure that you don't mess up, okay? And that was my biggest cause for concern heading into the year, which is the Rangers going from a team that was in a rebuild mindset to full-blown playoffs. Okay, but these are guys that are supposed to be part of your core going forward. You have to give them opportunities here, even if they have their mistakes. And look, Laffy's definitely have. There's no denying that. But the point I'm trying to make here is that if you're doing comparisons with a guy like Blais, nothing personal against Blais, I like him, but there's no reason why Lafreniere should not be getting at least more playing time, rolling out more. Because even when you look at how they're utilizing these top 9 lines, Lafreniere is consistently gaining less ice time versus a guy like Barclay Goodrow and others, with trying to take away the obvious fact of Goodrow having time on PK versus Lafreniere who doesn't. But I just wanted to throw that out there because a lot of fans have been rather concerned about Laffy, and I think that you have a right to be concerned to a certain extent. I think both are at fault here, but I do not want to see a season where Alexei's mainly on that third line when he doesn't need to be.
Look, third line, I can live with. What annoyed me is that he was on the fourth line.
Mm-hmm.
He was playing. I'm trying to remember what game it was. I think it was against the Oilers. He was on the fourth line, and he played 9 minutes and 20 seconds. And after the game, Molly Walker of the New York Post asked Gerard Gallant.
I know.
He interrupted her because she couldn't even finish her question. The moment she mentioned Alexis Lafreniere, he cut her off, and it was very defensive. And I get it, but if you put your first overall pick from a year ago on the fourth line, having him play 9 minutes, a month after you as a coach come out and say, prospects don't have anything to learn on the fourth line, you are going to get questions about it. And
it's just contradictive. It's like, why make it? It's like the captaincy thing too. It's like, just don't make a comment if you're going to go back on it.
Yeah. If I'm a betting man, I would say yes. And the following week we have 6 alternate captains and no captain. Look, I don't want to turn this into a Gallant bashing session because I have nothing.
No, I don't have it well against Gallant, but you can tell that.
Coach. Yeah, he's just, the first couple of weeks have been frustrating for Ranger fans, and one of the reasons it's frustrating is because of the whole Lafreniere situation. And it's not just, I know that I tweeted this image that I found on Instagram comparing the 2 Red Wings prospects to Kakko and Lafreniere, but it's so much more than that. it's not just Lucas Raymond for Lafreniere. Lafreniere has 4 points in 13 games. It's just underwhelming. Dawson Mercer has 7 points. Anton Lundell has 6. Jamie Drysdale, a defenseman for the Anaheim Ducks, has 6. These kids were drafted in the same year as Alexis Lafreniere. And I remember one guy on Twitter saying, "Oh, he's only 2 points behind this guy." I don't care. He's a first overall pick. He shouldn't be on par with these guys. He should be ahead of them.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Out of all the games that we've seen Alexi play so far as a New York Ranger, how many of them can you confidently say looked like the Alexis Lafreniere that was deemed to go universally first overall?
None. Sorry. I know he has 3 goals, but every goal he scored looked the same. Every goal he scored was a tap in.
I was just going to say that. Yeah, it's normally a 2-on-1 or something along those lines. Yeah,
the goal in Montreal was great. His family was there, and it was a huge story. But let's be real here. All he had to do was put the puck in an empty net after Zibanejad made the cross crease pass.
And I think that's where you have. I think that's where you have a different discussion with Kakko too, because I've seen Kakko. I've seen the flashes of him. We haven't seen it full rolling offensively yet, but we've seen I feel far more comfortable with Kakko with what's happening going forward than I do Alexi.
Kakko and Lafreniere have been polar opposites. For Kakko, the game, the performance has been there. The points just haven't been.
And they will come over time. And for Lafreniere, he's got more shots on that too. That's another thing with Kakko. And you can say the same thing about Alexi.
Yeah, but for Lafreniere, I know he has 3 goals, but he doesn't play like he has 3 goals.
No. He looks like someone that is still trying to find himself, fitted in a system that is away from what made him the best player in the world up until his draft year.
Yeah, and I'm terrified of the Rangers trying to mold these top prospects into the type of player that they aren't suited for.
There's no point. There's 0 point in trying to take away what a player's done at this point for the sake of maybe being a better role on the club. No, these guys are supposed to be superstars. That's what their potential is supposed to be. We need to help guide them to get there. And there's still something wrong going on. And clearly Alexi's at fault for some of it. He's definitely, I'm not going to say that he's not at fault for anything he is, but I want to see more opportunities given him.
This goes a lot further than just Kakko, Lafreniere, and even further than Kravtsov and Andersson. The Rangers, I looked it up. If you look at the top 15 picks the Rangers have made in the last 25 years, and the reason I picked top 15, it's the top half of the first round for the majority of that time. Those are usually the players that play in the NHL or AHL at age 18 or 19. The Rangers made 14 picks in the top 15 since 1997, and only one of them has developed into either a top 4 defenseman or a top 6 forward for us, and that's Mark Stahl. JT Miller became a top 6 forward somewhere else. Great for him. Don't give a shit. I don't care what he does elsewhere. I'm just looking at what these prospects have turned into for us in our development. Developing in our system, in our culture, in our organization. Going all the way back to Manny Malhotra and Pavel Brendel and Jamie Lundmark. It's just time and time again. If these kids come in at age 18 and 19, they just don't develop. If they stay in college for 3 years, or if they stay in college for 3 years like Chris Kreider, or if they develop elsewhere, if they are part of the Flames organization like Adam Fox, or if they play in Russia for 5 years like Igor Shesterkin, then they're great. Derek Stepan developed in college, came into the NHL, scored a hat trick on his debut, and has been a good player since. But the moment the Rangers get their hands on a player in their teenage years, everything goes out the window. It's unbelievable. Philip Hedl and Artem Anisimov are the most successful examples of that. And Artem Anisimov, I like Artem Anisimov. He was part of that team that you first started watching, back in 2010. Great player, but very hit or miss. He played some great games, but they were few and far between. Filip Chytil is probably Artem Anisimov without the defense. He's like an Artem Anisimov light.
Yeah, we said the exact same thing last episode.
Those are the two success stories when it comes to developing teenagers in Hartford in the last 20 years. Those are the only two success stories. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous.
Here,
this team does not know how to develop. And don't even get me started on the rink size this and have to get used to North America that. No. Moritz Seider and Lucas Raymond in Detroit are doing fine. Anton Lundell, who's Finnish, is doing fine in Florida. This is not a European versus North American thing.
It's an organization thing.
Yeah, this is not a getting used to the rink size thing. This is a Rangers thing. And it's not the bright lights of New York City. Nobody gives a shit about New York City. New York City is just a big city like every other city.
Okay. I will, Steven.
No.
For reason, I got to counter you there, Steven, because to suggest that New York City doesn't have any different impact for a lot of players.
No. Listen, for a hockey player, New York City is not bigger than Toronto or Detroit. As a hockey market, no.
As a hockey market.
As a hockey player. I'm not talking about basketball. I'm not talking about football. I'm talking about as a hockey player. New York is not a bigger market than Detroit or Toronto.
Especially not Toronto. Toronto's like the hub.
And Detroit and Toronto are the two prime examples of having these prospects come in together with Tampa Bay and flourish. I just want our top two picks to become the players they are destined to be.
And I just don't want them to be prohibited from potentially becoming what they should be because of a lack of utilization or wrong judgment on how to go about developing them. That's truly my only concern here, because I'm not Alexei and Capo. They're so young. Do I think that they're going to have fine careers? Absolutely. But the point is that where the Rangers currently are today, what their motive is this season, I'm still trying to find reasons as to why it doesn't make sense not to have Alexei playing 17 or so minutes a night. Like, this is someone where this is a time to give him that playing time, because it's not even like the Rangers are in a spot right now where they're cup contenders. This would be a different argument I think we could have if say Buchnevich was still on the team, right? Because already you're blocking. You have a tighter knit group with those winners. Maybe Kravtsov was still with the club. It would be even different because you have another guy competing, right, in that top nine. And it would be even different times 10 if you're a team that, say, is going back to the mid-2010 Rangers when they were going for those deep runs in playoffs. It's hard to find room for a guy when you have a motive of trying to win cup every year. And don't get me wrong, teams always do, but the Rangers are in a spot right now. They're just starting this new turnover of taking that next step. These guys are a part of your next step. Give them opportunities to succeed. Let them fail and learn from it. Do not demote them right away because they had a failure, because there's a reason why rebuilding clubs that have top prospects that are currently developing and doing really well are so consistently gaining plenty of playing time and opportunities even when they're not having success. You need to help build that and get that confidence in them. Alexei doesn't have that right now. He hasn't had much of it since he arrived with the Rangers. And Kakko, he's fluctuated with it for sure, but these are still guys that they're a part of your core. You drafted them for a reason. There's a reason why they were supposed to be first overall and second overall, respectively. Those are guys you should be building your club around in the coming years. Give them every opportunity to succeed known to man, even if they have their struggles. Just let them grind through it. I'd much rather the Rangers have a year where they go and give them as much opportunity as possible. And if that impacts them to a certain extent with playoffs, then okay, because at the end of the day, no one's expecting the Rangers to have a deep playoff run this year, okay? There's reasons why we're focused on the next 5+ years, not right now.
Yeah, and look, my point previously was it's not a New York City thing, it's a New York Rangers thing. It's 100% this organization needs to look in the mirror and they need to evaluate the way they're doing things, because something's not working. And I really don't care about people saying we should have drafted Moritz Seider, we should have drafted Lucas Raymond, because I can almost guarantee you that if those two players are in the Rangers organization, they don't even combine for 3 points this season. There's no way. They were not the picks on draft day. The Rangers didn't make any mistakes drafting these two guys in Kakko and Lafreniere. They made the right picks. They made the right picks on draft day. There's no argument.
They were the right picks. I would refrain from using guys like Raymond and Seider as such comps, because this is emphasized far more in Lafreniere than it is Kakko. But Raymond, I watched it. I've been heavily ingrained with him literally since he first came in the reins as a big draft prospect. He was always doing great against men, and he had a struggle initially once he hit the SHL, but that didn't take long. He has an amazing shot. This is never surprising, and I don't think anyone should be that Raymond's doing this well because he's already performed against men in what you could say is, the third hardest league in all of hockey outside of, NHL, KHL, and then SHL. And Seider's a German, but he's someone that's been playing against men as well. So those aren't surprising to me. Let me put it that way.
Seider also played in the SHL, by the way.
Yes.
Yeah. So, yeah, they played in the third best league in the world. But so did Lundqvist. And Lundqvist comes into New York and doesn't get the same opportunities. And I know you have Fox and you have Truba, blah, blah, blah. I don't care.
They are blocking. They are blocking Neil.
They are blocking. Yes, they are blocking. But why is Tenorti playing?
Yeah.
Why? I don't get it. I really don't understand.
I don't think it'll be too long before Zach Jones is brought up.
Probably. Looking forward to that. Zach Jones is going to be a special player for us. Not like superstar, but fun player to watch. But look, I want to move on from this before I say more frustrating things. But I just want what's best for this team. I want our prospects to flourish in New York. I don't want a prospect to flourish in Florida like Anthony Duclair or elsewhere. I want our prospects to play well for us. Watching JT Miller in Vancouver, it's great for JT Miller. I wish he would have turned his head around. I wish he would have turned his career around in New York.
JT was putting up really good numbers with the Rangers, though. It felt like it was more of a Alain Vigneault thing at that time, too.
Yeah, look, JT Miller had his issues, and he admitted this in an interview, too. After he was traded to Vancouver, he admitted that
traded Tampa.
No. He was traded to Tampa first, but after he was traded to Vancouver.
Oh, okay, yes, yeah.
He in an interview, he said that the trade to Vancouver was the wake-up call for him.
Mm-hmm.
He all of a sudden, he started to take it serious. He was no longer out drinking the night before games. And I'm talking about afternoon games. In New York, he'd be caught drinking the night before afternoon games with fans and then have a terrible game. And that was one of the issues. He just didn't take it serious. And there were other players in New York that had the same issue. Kevin Hayes, Brady Shea, Jimmy Vesey. Those three, I don't know. We talked about this.
All the college boys, of course.
Yeah. I mean, they're living in some bachelor pad, eating pizzas and microwave meals. That's not how you live as an NHL player. I'm sorry. And then you look at
how you should live if you're trying to get the best potential out of you.
Yeah, and this is why I like the Road to the Winter Classic shows that HBO did in the past, and now unfortunately NBC does it. But I remember with the Flyers against the Rangers in 2012 that Sean Couturier and Braden Chen were staying with, I think, Danny Briere. They were living with Danny Briere because, it was just a better environment for them. And, they had a good meal every evening instead of ordering takeout. That's one of the things that's missing from the Rangers, I feel. And I'm not close enough to really make these observations and be 100% certain that what the issue is, but I do know there's an issue. This is not bad luck, and I'm just tired of prospects being underwhelming year in, year out, and having fans blame it on the player. At some point, it's no longer the player. If you have this many players in a row that are struggling with the same organization, with the same coach, with the same front office, with the same environment, there's a bigger issue at play, and I wish fans would understand that. And this is not hating the Rangers. This is just observing that it's happening too many times for it to be a coincidence.
Yeah, no. If anyone listening to this thinks that myself or Steven, especially as a Rangers hater, you're just not paying attention. This is literally Steven's livelihood we're talking about. Like
if I hated the Rangers, I'd be celebrating their failures, not criticizing them.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Before we kind of, get towards the end of the episode here, we have a couple more segments that we need to discuss, topics, I should say. And let's get into a prospect update. Steven, I'll let you run with this because it starts with a player that signed his ELC with the Rangers over this past week. That's definitely exciting news for him.
Yeah, sixth-round pick from 2020, Matt Rempe, who plays for the Seattle Thunderbirds. If Ranger fans have watched the prospect development camp, they might remember him as the tall guy, 6'8". He signed his entry-level contract. Good for him. It slides this year, so it expires in 2025. The other prospects, Brandon Othman and Will Cooley in the OHL, are having great starts to the season. Same with Brett Berard in college, who the Rangers tweeted about as their prospect of the month for the month of October, and rightfully so. I think Brett Berard is going to be a very interesting name to keep an eye on in years to come. And with the World Juniors coming up in December, he's one to watch out for on Team USA.
I really liked Berard since I thought that was a really nice pick when the Rangers drafted him. Little buzzsaw, as they like to call him, someone that being undersized, I always appreciate someone undersized myself. I see a guy that could come in and really help potentially be a solid role player on this club in their top 9 in the next couple of years. We'll see what's available to them. But yeah, I like Berard a lot. And before we go further, I want to thank young Jimmy T. Thank you so much for the $5 donation, my friend. I appreciate that. Hi to everybody in the chat watching this live. Thank you so much, Jimmy, for that. Steven is dead on. He says Benoit Allaire begins his 17th season with the Rangers coaching staff for a reason. He's good at making players better. Yeah, again, thank you for the donation. You're right in regards to goaltending. There's no doubt in that at all. Thankfully, the Rangers have been in the spot for so long where they've had this consistent flow of solid goaltending, if not great goaltending, for a long period of time. But
and we have another one coming up now as well, also in juniors, because Berard is in college, of course. Othman and Cooley are doing great in the OHL, but in the WHL, we have Ryder Korzak, who is a center, who is one of my favorite prospects currently in the organization. My favorite pick of the 2021 draft, even though I have 2 Brendan Othman jerseys behind me. But Ryder Korzak, I think, is a very underrated prospect. Reminds me a lot of Derek Brassard in the way he plays, shoots the puck a lot, and it's just his enthusiasm is what really stands out. He's a really good kid on that team, the Moose Jaw Warriors. But the goalie, we have 2 goalies in the WHL as well. Talon Boyko, who was traded from the Tri-City Americans to the Kelowna Rockets. Boyko, who played in Kelowna as a kid, as a teenager, so he's returning back to a familiar spot in Kelowna. And then Dylan Garant, who is the one to keep an eye on. He was in Hartford last season during the postponed WHL season. He was allowed to join the Hartford Wolfpack. Spent a couple of weeks with them in practice. He was picked as the goalie of the week last week in the CHL, not just the WHL, but the CHL as a whole. And I think he's going to get his entry-level contract as well soon. His rights expire in June, so the Rangers have to make a decision this season. But I'm pretty sure they'll give him a contract. He's been really good for the Kamloops Blazers.
Yeah.
And that's it when it comes to prospects. The other thing I wanted to touch on quickly is, of course, Vitaly Kravtsov, who's now in Russia playing for Takhtar Chelyabinsk.
Who scored not 1 but 2 high. The second one was a highlight reel goal. Being the winner for trying to say their name, Takhtar
Chelyabinsk.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, and that game was a couple days ago now.
And they played in Kazakhstan against Beris Nur Sultan. They used to be called Beris Astana, but the Kazakh government changed the name of their capital. So now they're Beris Nur Sultan. It's weird. Who renames their capital? But yeah, most importantly about that game for Kravtsov, for Ranger fans, is that he did it on a rink that's the same size as NHL rinks. There's some changes going on in the KHL the last couple of years. More and more teams moving to smaller rinks because they want to be, they want to have the same rink size as the NHL. There are still a couple of teams that play on hybrid rinks, the same as the Finnish league. But I have shared a graph on Twitter about that. But when I give an update on Kravtsov's performance per game, I will mention the rink size, so just so everyone's aware. But Kravtsov's off to a good start. 3 points in 1 game, 2 goals, 1 assist, including the overtime winner. Our prospects are doing well. So, and hopefully, we were talking about Puljujärvi earlier. That's the preferred outcome, in my opinion, for Kravtsov.
I
Play.
mentioned that
Yeah,
last episode, I believe, if
yeah,
the Rangers
yeah.
could somehow, salvage this relationship. It doesn't
Mhm.
feel likely still, but I do know that Krasov's comments were along the lines of wanting to return and be back with the Rangers. Something tells me that if he had absolutely no desire in doing so, he wouldn't make that remark. So while things definitely don't look comfortable between these two parties right now, I wouldn't say it's completely off the table of him
Yeah.
being
It's
with the Rangers
improbable.
next season.
The way Elliot Friedman described it is, it's improbable, not impossible.
Yeah. So I'm gonna go with I'm gonna stay with the under right now, that
Yeah.
being him not returning.
Yeah.
But we'll see
But
what happens. He can't even come to the Rangers this season because that was the only way for them to reach an agreement with his KHL club. They asked to stay
correct.
with him for the entirety of the season.
It's a full season loan. They're currently ranked second in the KHL, so they are pretty much a lock for the playoffs. The regular season ends March 1st. If they win the first round, you have to count on like late March. If it's a second round exit, late March. If it's a third round exit, mid-April. If they make it all the way to the final, it's late April. So that's something to keep an eye on. But the two teams that he was linked to in a potential trade are the Ottawa Senators and Montreal Canadiens. So we'll see what
Two
happens
teams
there.
that the Rangers could definitely benefit from
Yeah,
a prospect or so
yeah.
from them for
So
sure.
we'll see.
So
We'll see what happens there. But I just wanted to play well because at the very least it'll increase his value, and
yeah,
that's good for the Rangers.
no,
Um,
absolutely right. I
so,
want to touch on one thing before you say what you're about to say. We have
yeah,
another $5 donation in here. Thank you so much, Baka. I appreciate that. And another donation too from Jimmy T. Look at that. Thank you again for that. Also, Jimmy, really does mean a lot, my friend. If you're watching this in the live stream or on replay, folks, Kravtsov deserved to make the team on his first invite 3 seasons ago. He is hands down better than any bottom six Rangers have right now.
yeah.
I appreciate the donation again. I think you're stretching a bit on saying, if he's absolutely better than everyone, their bottom six. Um,
Well, let's not forget 2 years ago, he was sent down to the AHL with Brendan Smith and Michael Haley playing as wingers.
oh no, I'm aware of his initial
So
utilization. It wasn't
yeah,
pretty. Yeah,
yeah.
it was
So
frustrating.
but we'll see what happens. So moving away from prospects, some Rangers player updates. Philip Heedle's injured, of course.
Yep.
So we'll see what happens with that day to day. I
It
think
looks like
Barclay
that
Goodrow.
according to not to cut you off, but I have to. According to Gallant, it looks like that there's possibility of him returning this Saturday. Not sure on the likelihood. They want to get him to skate. He'll hopefully we can see him in one of those 2 games this weekend because the Rangers play back to back.
Yeah, I do like Goudreau as the third line center in his spot. So it's
Mhm.
not the end of the world if he does miss a couple more games. The other thing that's notable is McKeag being sent down to Hartford. He
Yep.
only had 2 days left on his waiver exemption. When a player clears waivers, he has waiver exemption for 30 days on the team, and I think it was coming up to 28. So the Rangers had to make a decision now. And the last player update I want to mention is Libor Hayek, everyone's favorite Rangers defenseman. Um,
Obviously.
he's also going to the Hartford Wolfpack, but on a conditional stint, a conditioning stint.
Yep.
A couple of things with that, so fans are aware how that works. A conditioning stint has to be approved by the player, first of all. It does not require waivers. However, the player does get paid his NHL salary if he's on a two-way contract. So it doesn't impact Libor Hayek's pay. A conditioning stint is max 2 weeks, and it does need league approval. So it looks like the Rangers and Libor Hayek were able to come to an agreement there with him going to Hartford for 2 weeks. He'll probably play a couple of games. Let's see who comes out of the lineup, because there's a lot of prospects there that are getting their games in Jones and Robertson, Skinner, Schneider, Reunanen, of course. So we'll see what happens there. But Hayek to Hartford for 2 weeks. That's it with the updates.
Perfect. Yeah, Hayek. We'll see. what comes of that. If anything, don't expect anything for sure. McKegg, I'm glad that, I know we kind of jokingly criticized about it early on. Oh, okay, he's already Gallant's favorite. Staying on that fourth line. That was short-lived too, so we don't have to, continue those silly narratives or anything like that. But let's get into some questions now for our Q&A that we'll do for a couple minutes. Nothing too long to make sure the episode isn't going
Before we get into the questions, can I quickly share the tickets?
No, you may not. I'm joking.
All right, so my fiance has 2 tickets to the Rangers Sabres game on November 21st. We initially were going to use those tickets, but we were able to get tickets in a different section. So we're looking to get rid of those tickets. It's section 226, row 7. I have tweeted this, what was it, 2 days ago? I'm retweeting it now. If you go to my Twitter page, you'll see it. If you're interested, let me know, DM me or my fiance if you're looking for tickets for that game. It's Hockey Fights Cancer Night. So
yeah, definitely make sure to hit up Steven. Did you tell them how to reach you on Twitter?
Yes, my Twitter account is statboy_Steven.
Yep, we have it here if you're watching live through YouTube or in general, however you're listening to the podcast. Statboy_Steven on Twitter would probably be the best way to reach Steven for this.
Yeah, my DMs are open, so feel free to reach out. Yep. That's it.
Awesome. Okay. All right, let's get into some questions now, folks, if you have any of them for us. I know that we don't have too many viewers watching this live right now. That's perfectly fine. But if you guys have any comments, questions, or concerns, go ahead. I know a comment that came in the chat earlier that I want to touch on is I just want to know your reaction, really, and that is regarding Niels, on if you're still feeling highly about him. I think it's very early to put much of any criticism towards Niels. He's a guy that has 2 points now through his first I believe he has 9 or 10 games under his belt. Wouldn't be too concerned about it. However, as Steven has just looks like he has logged off. So we'll see if he will be able to get. Oh, there you go. You're back, Steven. Awesome.
I'm back. Yeah.
So Steven, kind of what has been your take on Niels Lundqvist's performance to this point?
He started off shaky. First couple of games didn't really look as comfortable in his own zone as I would have wanted. The partnership with Patrick Nemeth needed some time to get comfortable there as well. But I think the last 4 games he's played, I think it's been really well. He played against the Columbus Blue Jackets last 3 games, the Oilers and the Panthers. So I like what I'm seeing in the last couple of games. Hopefully he can build on this. But it's tough transitioning into a team that's this bad on defense, because defense is a 5-player game,
Yep.
And last game, Marchment was it Marchment? Tried to hit him into the boards, and he evaded that hit by some miracle, like he always does. And Marchment went into the locker room with what seemed to be a dislocated shoulder from that hit. So he sees the ice well. He sees the opponents. He just needs to get a little bit more comfortable with the speed of the game. And yeah, it'll take a couple of weeks. But I don't think he's a liability. It's not like, it's not like players in the past. It's not like Kakko in his rookie season where he was like a net negative.
Yeah, he's just kind of neutral right now. There's nothing flashy too much about him. Yeah. He's also limited with his opportunities, as we kind of expected.
And sending him down is something I spoke to someone in the Rangers org about this. And, sending down a player is not always about performance. It's also about how the player feels. If a player is overwhelmed by the whole NHL scene, the practices, the sessions, this and that, then that would be a good reason to send someone to the AHL for a couple of weeks. But if a player is not necessarily overwhelmed, if like mentally he's ready for it, then that could keep a player in the NHL as well. So we'll see what happens. I do want to see Zach Jones on the Rangers in the upcoming weeks. So we'll see what happens there. I don't think Jones is an option for the right side of the defense, though. So if he comes in for Lundqvist, you would probably see Patrick Nemeth move to the right side, or Nemeth sitting, and then Jared Tenorti playing on the right side.
Yeah, that makes sense.
With Zach Jones. So we'll see what happens. But overall, I was hoping for more, but I'm not disappointed, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. I don't really have too much gripes, if at all, with Niels yet. Just looking forward to when he hopefully hits that next step where we can see some more flashes out of him, get his first career goal under his belt, and fun stuff like that. Here we have a donation from Yona, who's been a great support. Thank you so much for that, my friend. He asked a good question here: is giving Kakko the nice bison, Puljujärvi, who he's referring to, treatment ever going to be an option? Saw some speculation about that in Turku newspaper's sports section. Yona, thank you so much again, my friend. I know that you are a Finn, so this makes even perfect sense. And my initial reaction to it, too, I want to know your thoughts on it, Steven, is I don't think we're going to see that with a guy like Puljujärvi, because from all that we see right now, it looks like the relationship with Kakko and the team is good, or at least okay. I don't think that they're at the lengths of what Puljujärvi was at his worst point, which led to his departure for a bit with Edmonton. So even with Kakko not having a point yet this season, if you lose him in a scenario anytime soon like that, you have a huge hole in your top six as it is, okay? You don't not just have Buchnevich anymore or Kravtsov as a possibility. Now you're losing Kakko, who's your bona fide, second line right winger right now. That's not a good look. And I just don't think that that's going to happen. I think the discipline is a bit different in this scenario for sure than how it is in Puljujärvi's situation.
Yeah. And I think we talk about Pavel Buchnevich being traded affecting Vitaly Kravtsov because they were good friends. Maybe people don't really know this or just forgot, but
Brendan Smith.
The departure of Brendan Smith might affect Kaapo Kakko as well, because Brendan Smith is the guy who helped him adjust to life in North America. Who helped him out with the most seemingly basic things. And we talked about this before. What a big change it is for a player to move to another country at a young age. Something as simple as where to get cough syrup. If you have a cough, where to go when you live in the US, right?
I hope so.
What shop to go to because you grew up there. So this is something that you learned along the way. But if you live in a country where they speak a different language, the brands are all different. It's an adjustment. It's just something small, but that's Brendan Smith was a huge help for Kaapo Kakko. So losing Brendan Smith, I don't know if it affects him, but I wouldn't be surprised if it does.
I wouldn't be surprised either, but I don't think that's enough of a factor.
No. But I don't think it affects his play on the ice.
Yeah,
but off the ice, outside of games, I don't know their situation. I know what their situation was like last season. So but we'll see. Kakko seems happy in New York. There are no issues between the team and the player. This is not like Puljujärvi and the Oilers, like you said. I think Kakko will be fine.
I think so too. We have a couple more questions we'll get to before we wrap things up with the upcoming schedule for the next couple games for the Rangers. Great question by Brody, who's a great subscriber and supporter on the channel. Asked, do I think Kreider can hit 30 goals this season? He can, but I don't think he's going to. I think Kreider's going to sit right around 27.
He's on pace for 56.
He's exactly. And I'm still not optimistic he'll hit 30. So
if he hits 20 by the end of December,
he's done that before, though. He's hit almost 20 at halfway points in the season.
Yeah, true.
You can't think that. Oh my goodness, he's on this pace. No, we'll believe it when we see it.
6 of his 9 goals came on the power play. That's I hate to bring up the word of the day, but not sustainable.
Yeah, I do think that if there's a year where he will crack 30, this very well could be that year from what we're seeing.
Do you know?
For sure.
I tweeted this, so you should know if you follow me. But do you know the last player the Rangers drafted who hit 30 goals for them?
The last player the Rangers drafted
to score 30 goals as a Ranger.
Do you know the year? Could you throw that out on me, or is that too much of a hint?
05-06.
Oh shit! This is the beginning of the Hank era.
Jersey number 25.
I'm still blanking because this was before. This was during Jágr's time, though.
Yeah, he's from the Czech Republic.
Oh, come on, Come on. It's literally on the tip of my tongue. I know who it is. No, it's I don't want to say the wrong. Just tell me who it is.
Peter Pruka.
Okay.
Last Rangers draft pick to hit 30 goals for us. The last Rangers forward draft pick to hit 60 points for us is still Tony Amonte in 1993.
That's crazy.
Chris Kreider has a chance to break both.
He does.
Those droughts this season.
This might be the year of Kreider that no one expected.
We've been talking about this for 10 years. Do you remember his career where he was Calder eligible every freaking season?
Yes, I'm fully aware. That's what made me love him so much right from the beginning. Though it was entertaining. His immediate impact in playoffs. We could go on hours on Kreider's career for sure, but so far so good. Loving what I'm seeing from Kreider. He's doing exactly what I would hope he would be doing. And that net front presence never gets old. Can continue doing that, and great things are going to happen.
Best in the league.
Yeah. He really is best in the league at what he's doing right now. So hopefully it continues. Maybe he'll hit that 30 goal plateau.
Since entering the league, he has the most goals off deflections.
Yeah. I mentioned in the past couple episodes. I'm pretty sure that still holds true right now.
I think Pavelski is number 2.
Pardon?
I think Joe Pavelski is number 2.
That wouldn't surprise me. That wouldn't surprise me in the slightest. Yeah. I'm going to take 2 more questions before we get on to our final topic. Another donation here from Jimmy. Thank you again, my friend. At what point do Nemeth, Tinordi play their way off the team with guys like Jones and Schneider and Hartford? I don't think we're going to see at any point this season where one is completely off, especially Nemeth because he's on a 3-year deal. Tinordi, I don't see having a long leash, but I would say right now we're looking at Nemeth for at least this season and probably next season having a role on this defensive core until proven otherwise, unless we have it where Jones plays so well that we can result in trading away Nemeth this soon into his contract. But that's a lot of ifs. And one thing that's certain is Nemeth's contract. So if you're going to safe bet, I would say don't expect anything drastic where, either of them are out of the lineup consistently throughout the year for a guy like Jones and or Schneider, especially Schneider. I think Schneider will get maybe a cup of coffee this year, but I don't expect anything of significance from him.
Yeah, and I don't think Braden Schneider has played well enough to be considered a call-up yet. He's decent in Hartford, but he's not really blowing me away when I watch their games. Zach Jones is the first call-up on defense. Easy. I think we might see Braden Schneider near the end of the season. If we trade away a player at the deadline, for instance, then we might see a call-up. There's also no roster limit after the trade deadline. So that makes it easier for teams to call up players to give them a cup of coffee.
Yep. No, that's a fair point as well. Final comment we're going to take here from the live stream. Thank you, Joel. I feel like Kravtsov's style of play has a higher ceiling than Lafreniere and Kakko. Ooh, bold take. They just don't seem as skilled. What do I think? Ooh, that's a very interesting remark here. So Kravtsov, when I look at his style of play, I don't think it has a higher ceiling of Kakko, especially because Kakko just looks like such a more well-rounded player than the other two between Lafreniere and Kravtsov. Kakko has that two-way element to him that they just don't touch right now, that I think is really going to help him, not just this year, but in the coming years with staying consistent when it comes to his role in the club in the top 6, among other things. Laffy, I think, I still believe from everything that we know about Lafreniere has the highest ceiling skill-wise, but it's been underwhelming. And I think there is a fair argument to say that Vitali could have an edge right now, given the experience he's had and what we know we could see from him. But it's so early. So I like the speculation. I think it's fun seeing, what could potentially be the highest ceiling among these players' skill styles. So what's kind of your take on that, Steven?
Kravtsov definitely plays a flashier game. It's a lot easier to enjoy Kravtsov's game than it is to enjoy Kakko's or Lafreniere's game. My biggest concern with Kravtsov is that his style of play is not well suited for the NHL.
Yeah.
And it might work in the NHL, but in a third line role, where you don't play against the team's top opponents. I don't think Kravtsov is necessarily better or necessarily has a higher ceiling. I just think his good plays are just much more noticeable. Whereas Kakko, we've been through this. Kakko's biggest strength at the moment is the transition game and defense. He causes a lot of turnovers. Lafreniere, it just seems like a confidence issue.
Mm-hmm.
But Kravtsov, he's a good prospect. Let's not forget the top 10 pick. He's also 2 years older than Lafreniere, so he has a little bit of a head start there. I'm really interested to see Kravtsov coming back on the team in March or April to see what he can do at the end of the season. If we are in the hunt for the playoffs, it would be foolish not to add him to the team, because and circling back to the whole Detroit Red Wings thing, where people say, "Oh, Raymond is playing because the Red Wings don't have any good players in their top six." The Rangers are currently playing Sammy Blais in their top six, and previously it was Barclay Goodrow. Let's not pretend that we don't have any spots in the top six up for grabs. But yeah, Kravtsov definitely plays a flashier type of hockey than the other two. That doesn't necessarily make him better; just makes him more fun to watch, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does, and I definitely hear where you're coming from. So let's get on for our final topic before the end of today's episode. Again, thank you all so much, everybody that's been chiming in live or on replay, where we get your podcasts. The upcoming schedule for the Rangers will go for the next 3 games. We'll try to hopefully record a week from right now. We'll see how your schedule's looking now, because you'll be in the States. But the Rangers have 3 games coming up starting this Saturday, November 13th. At Columbus, the Rangers had a very solid game against Columbus the first time around the season. We'll see how they do this time. Columbus, I believe, is 7-3 on the season. Then they have a back-to-back. Then they had a home for their first home game against the Devils this year. Devils have had a good start to the season as well. I'm pretty sure, are the Devils 6-3? They have a solid record so far this season too. Then the Rangers' final game of the span is against the laboring Montreal Canadiens, with Carey Price, who just made it known why he's out because of substance abuse issues. So wishing the best for Carey Price, that he's going to be able, has been getting the help that he's been needed and will continue to. But Habs are definitely looking like a shell of the team that they once were with him as their number 1 goaltender. So the Rangers' next 3 games, going to be interesting matchup. I'm concerned about having to, 4 days off to then have a back-to-back 3 games in 2 days. I'm a little nervous about that. So with the Rangers looking right now with Columbus, Devils, and Montreal, I do think that they are more than capable of winning all these games, but I'm going to go with the safer bet of saying that the Rangers just go 2-1.
2-1. All right. Let's see. I'm going to go with 1-1-1.
Okay.
I want to add a tiebreaker in this, if you don't mind.
Okay.
Because this week we were both wrong, and we need to somehow get a point for this. Do you want to do number of Ranger goals in these 3 games?
Ooh, okay. You go first.
And then whoever's closest, if neither of us gets the right record, whoever's closest wins.
Jot it down that has started at November 10th. It hasn't started from the beginning of the season. So this is an in-season change to our recording here.
Yes, yeah, we are much more much more easygoing than Bettman. We just need to change the season.
We just do things on the fly.
Exactly. Let's see, Columbus, New Jersey, and Montreal. I'm gonna go with 9.
9? Okay. I don't want to be too conservative, but I don't want to be too,
I made it difficult for you with 9, right? Because it's right in the middle of
Montreal feels like a game that they could net at least 3 or 4. The Devils feels like a game that they could net at least 3 or 4, and Columbus, but are the Rangers going to score a bunch of goals in back-to-back games? They didn't at all in their past back-to-back game stint. So I'm going to go with shit.
Just 8 or 10, whoever's closest wins. So
I know. All right, I'm going to go 10.
10.
I'm going to go 10.
All right, writing it down. Cool.
The Rangers win all 3 games, but they only score 2 goals in each game. Of course. That would favor, actually no, it wouldn't. It would favor you because you'd be closer, but you'd still be far away.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll see what happens. I'm looking forward to these games. These, again, all games. For the most part, these have all been games for the Rangers that have been winnable this year. They just haven't won all of them. I know that might sound a little cliche to say, but the potential's definitely been there. They just need to stop having these third period massacres. So, any final comments from you, Steven, before we get out of here in today's episode?
Nope, not at the moment.
Okay. All right, perfect. Well, again, thank you all so much, everybody that chimed into this episode 38 of Rangers Review. Steven, any number 38s that's on your mind before we get out of here? That is a priority before we end this episode.
The last player to wear number 38 for the Rangers, Michael Haley.
Wait, is Sauer one of them?
Yeah, Michael Sauer, Stephen Fogarty, P.A. Parento, Corey Potter, Jarkko Immonen, Bryce Lampman, Ronald Petrovitsky, I needed a second there, Rico Fata, Jeff Ulmer, Chris Kennedy, Ronnie Sundin, Sylvain Blouin, Jeff Bloomberg, Terry Karkner, and the first player to wear number 38 as a Ranger was in 1981-82, Robbie Ftorek.
Wow. P.A. Parento, that brings back memories. Very underrated goal scorer. Bounced with a bunch of teams. Remember him with the Islanders, among others too.
He's like the anti-Strong. He came from the Rangers and was big for the Islanders instead of the other way around.
Yes, that's true. And Michael Sauer, whose career really ended because of Dion Phaneuf.
It's not just Michael Sauer. His brother Kurt also had a couple of concussions. That family is cursed.
It is just, I will never forgive Dion for that. Not even once will I forgive him. I'm all on Sean Avery's side when it comes to that duel. That's all I gotta say. But all right, folks, that's gonna do it for this episode. Hope you guys did in fact enjoy. We'll be back soon, hopefully after a couple good games for the Rangers, and we'll talk to you soon. Let's go Rangers.
Let's go Rangers.